Hello, everyone. This is Andrew Berman, and with my buddy Paul Lucido, and you are joining us for another episode of 30 Days of Thought by Lucido and Berman. What my buddy Paul and I do here is we go into 30 Days of Thought right there, that book right there. We read a passage, we write down our notes, and the book is designed so you, the viewer or reader, write down your notes and record a video. And there's actually guidance on how to record the video and what to do. What Paul and I have decided to do is we take those instead of actually just doing them, where we record them on a phone, we share them here because we are on a mission to become. There we go.
Like
so
barking in the background, very uncomfortable.
So what we always do to start these off, Paul starts us off usually, so today we're doing attention deficit. Attention deficit is the section we're going over today, and I will give the abstract from it, and then Paul will kick us off. Although we cannot see inside his mind, it lights up, and imagination is birthed like a newborn son. Attention deficit. Take it away, Paul.
Thank you, Andrew, very much. And it's a Saturday, and so we decided to kind of do this a little more informally. So ADHD, attention deficit disorder, is a really interesting topic because there's a lot of misconception about what it actually is. And I want to kind of start by just touching on a couple of things. The first thing that comes to mind when you think about it is literally lack of attention. Somebody who's not focused, somebody who can't stay steadfast and keep their mind focused into a conversation with others, things like that. But it's actually a very self-focused behavior is what it really boils down to. And there are a lot of really high-level people who have been tremendously successful that actually have been diagnosed with it. The first person that came to mind for me, only because I have a great interest in him, is Albert Einstein. And I did a little homework and I went to look it up, and he's number one on the list. So I felt pretty good about that because it goes to show you, Albert Einstein, for example, when he was, going through during his school years through college, etc., he had a tendency to daydream. He would stare out the window. He would daydream a little bit. I like that, Andrew. Tends to daydream a little bit.
Oops.
I think Andrew has a little ADHD going right now. So very apropos for this conversation. So anyway, to get to the point, Albert Einstein, but there are others. JFK was one. Walt Disney was another one. Richard Branson, who is a business mogul, is also on that list. And there were a few others. There were a lot of
Jim Carrey,
actors.
Greg LeMond, four-time Tour de France winner, John F. Kennedy.
I said that, and then Michael Phelps is another one.
Yes, Walt Disney. Did you say Walt Disney?
Yes, I did. You weren't paying attention.
You wouldn't. So, speaking of ADD, you should see what my wife was doing to try to distract me.
Well, I don't even want to know. Hi, Barbara. So look, here's the thing. Let's get into this a little bit, and I want to talk about this a little bit because Jay was speaking from his heart in the book. There's not a whole lot on this chapter. It's very cut clear to me as to what he's trying to get across. There are a lot of people that are unfairly dismissed as a result of ADHD. And I know Jay was probably one of them growing up. There's a lot going on, firing off in the synapse. There's all kinds of information coming in. But it's true. People that have ADHD, and I know people personally, I'm not going to say their names, but I bet you know who you are, have a tendency to be very impatient. They are not really giving time to the other person to allow the other person to have their say or paying mind to what they have to say. They're too busy thinking about what they want to say. They've already got the answer. They want to blurt it out. They have no patience. They don't want to wait their turn. These are all symptoms of ADHD. And I will honestly say, I'll be very self-effacing here. I think I suffered from it a little bit too during my growing years, because I always remember my dad saying, button your lip, listen more. Interestingly enough, here we are 58 years later, and I hear Jay Doran talking about listen to what is unsaid. You have to be a good listener. And so over time and through maturity, etc., you find a way to deal with it. There's another component that I believe is involved too, is OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, which I am pretty confident I have a little bit of that. But I look at that as a good thing, not necessarily a negative thing. So let's go back to this disorder. Sometimes people that suffer from ADHD have genius level IQs. They actually do have the ability to focus when they're impassioned about something, when it's something that they really want to put their mind into, whether it's writing, whether it's being creative, whatever it might be. This is where that, we'll call it, I don't want to call it a syndrome, but for a lack of a better way to describe it, has its play, has its advantages. Where it could be disruptive is when you're trying to have a conversation with other people, and that starts to play in, and what it does is it makes you feel like the other person is really not engaged with you. They're nodding, they're listening, but they're really not. And they're distracted. So anyway, look, this is what I believe this is about. It's about embracing it. It's about understanding it from others' perspectives. So if you're talking or dealing with somebody that has this particular syndrome, the idea is to kind of take it with a grain of salt and find a way to navigate it. And if you've been around the planet long enough and you've talked to enough people and you've experienced people with this particular condition, there's a way to deal with it, and there's a way to have dialogue and make the most of it. So, and those that do have it need to put themselves in check, recognize the fact that they have it, and then try to find a way to curtail it a little bit, to find a way to communicate. We all have to be good listeners. Okay, I've been babbling. You're up, Andrew.
It's so funny that like the conversation that we're having about attention deficit, I've got like, all the distractions around me trying to thwart our broadcast. So to your so like I agree. This is not something the syndromes and the things that you're plagued with when you have attention deficit disorder. It's not actually it's not a bad thing. It means you're an active mind. So one of the things that this does talk about, this section does talk about, it talks about labels, and specifically, so Jay said something in here. He dedicated this. Dedicated to the label, those who called out the forsaken and forgotten, do not submit, be unique, and unleash your true genius, for inequality reigns supreme. Please share and spread to hope. So to that point, and this kind of makes me think about, remember the labels limit section that we did.
Yes.
Labels limit, and to put someone into a box, whether it's a box that we're calling them ADHD, whether it's something where we're calling them a millennial, whether it's something where we're calling them actually just some other he's a Jew, whatever it is. These are labels actually that have nothing to do with our true potential, and they're just like buckets that kind of categorize people into these things. And that was just one of the things that popped into my mind, the reference to the labels limit. These are things like many other things that might be impeding on people if they don't find the ways to work with these things, to be able to that it could be a hindrance in their life. I think myself, like most people, have levels of ADHD. And I've used tools to kind of manage that, to task managers, things that to keep me focused. So when I have that energy and I can direct it on one particular task, I'm unstoppable. I think we're all unstoppable when we can direct that energy into one thing. But it's also like the same things that happen to have you focus on that one task, but also pick up little things within that task that you're doing, or little I guess little opportunities or little things actually within whatever that task that you're working on is, that you're able to pick up because you're not because your mind is thinking bigger, not just taking the hammer and hitting that nail. So,
well, I mean, you've said a lot there, and I know where you're going with that. I mean, I can relate to it. There's a lot that could be said for this. I remember in school there were a lot of kids growing up that had what was labeled back at that time hyperactivity, which now, and I think in later years, has been, I believe, ADHD is synonymous with it. I don't quote me on that, but I believe it may very well.
It is.
And I remember that a lot of those kids, as they grew up and they got older, have done very well for themselves. It's just it's almost like a process that you have to go through. But where you were going, and kind of, I felt we're both kind of on the same wavelength here. It's about managing it. It's about, and can you manage it without medication? You're talking about channeling it, channeling your energy, and putting focusing on something and staying locked in. Sometimes I can speak for myself. I'm pretty good at doing that, but it's sometimes tough not to let the distractions come in. I go back to the same thing. Let's just use Albert Einstein just for the sake of conversation. The distraction of him being in class allowed him to daydream and think about other things. But those things that he was thinking about when he was in that moment were very dialed in, very focused, very laser focused, I should say, which gave him absolute clarity. So ironically, it's like the distractions allow you to actually have focus. A great example of that, and again, these are things we discussed, Andrew. When you're in the car driving, there's a, if you believe in, if you read Jungian philosophy and study collective unconscious and things like that, and you talk about the mammalian brain and the reptilian brain, the idea is that when you're driving, you're kind of in a survival mode. Your body's kicking in, your mind is kicking in, you're trying to pay attention to the road, but that's all kind of being handled almost automatically. And when that occurs, when that process occurs, it allows the mammalian brain, if you will, to begin to process thought. I've always said this, and if you were to go back and listen to any of the podcasts we've done, I've brought this up on many occasions, that a lot of the best thoughts come from driving in the car, being in the shower, okay, oddly enough. Any time that you're distracted in such a way where it allows you to almost daydream a little bit, and then all of a sudden clarity comes in. I get my best ideas, honestly, when I'm driving in the car. When I'm at my desk and I'm working, it's different. It's not the same. And so I don't have the luxury to have free thought. See what I'm saying? So when I'm working on what that project is. In conversations, I think it's important that we do our best to listen to who we're talking to, who we're having conversation with. Doesn't mean that you can't have discourse, have disagreement, debate, or whether conciliatory, where you're more agreeable. That's fine. But at least hear the other person out. Take some pause. Let them get their points across. And I think that is absolutely fundamental in communication. And I think if more of us practice that, we make a better choice. So, just some loose thoughts.
Yeah, well, I mean, so it's funny to talk about the distractions and how, like, yeah, I think about, like, I work better in audience, or like where there's people around me. Like, for instance, I do really, really well working in Starbucks, like with distraction around, with people around, with everything around me. For some reason, like the noise around me allows me to focus, or causes me to focus more on the work that I'm doing. It's a weird thing, and I will, every so often I will leave my office and go work at a Starbucks, to kind of address a problem that I'm having, or something actually that I need. Actually, I need that little boost to get to that next level. And just being in a public place like Starbucks, the chatter and everything around allows me to focus. Actually, it's interesting. There is an app that I use called At Focus. And one of the sounds that you can pick, they got white noise generator, you got actually all sorts of, like, waterfall. But one of the sounds is a coffee shop. It's actually like a coffee shop. So you hear, like, kind of voices. You can't necessarily make out the conversations, but it allows you to just kind of be hyper focused.
I have a friend, his name is Joe Fusco, and he was doing for a while this thing called Tuesday Cup of Joe. Now, the whole Morning Joe thing is not anything new, but he used it because his name is Joe, and I think he uses a background soundtrack, like you just said, that creates that cacophony of sounds in a coffee shop. I'll give you an example. At nighttime sometimes, when I fall asleep, I like to listen to ambient sounds. This could be, I mean, really either soundtracks for movies, which I've spoke of before. There's no dialogue. It's not necessarily always music. It could just be a combination of sounds. Most of it is orchestrative or electronic, which kind of creates this interesting sort of moody vibe. The other thing is when I read, and I was talking to Jay Doran about this, I like to play jazz music in the background. In fact, this morning when I got up, I made my coffee. I was downstairs and I was listening to jazz music. You could just pick different soundtracks, and it says for work, study, or for different things, and it'll just run all day long. And it just creates this very neat vibe, and it kind of just puts you in a space, in a headspace. So I do believe in the white noise concept. There are buildings that actually have white noise built into it. That little bit of white noise keeps people engaged. If it was dead still quiet, it might actually be, theoretically, and I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it could be distracting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep, I hear you. There's no question about it. I've found, actually, so my office, is that there's no windows. If I shut the door, I get sucked into a vortex. Like I need and I find I'm not as efficient as if I'm working in a more public place, or if the door's open and a little bit of music playing or something. And I need that that beat of something else to kind of keep me going and keep me focused. I need a distraction to keep me focused.
Well, totally hear you, man. So look, I feel like we did a pretty good job on this. Again, folks, we're reading 30 Days of Thought by Jay Doran. This was called Attention Deficit. Again, the abstract on this was, although we cannot see inside his mind, it lights up and imagination is birthed like a newborn sun, as in the sun in our solar system, very bright. And, a lot of what Jay writes in this book, as we've talked about before, is about self-discovery. It's about helping you dig deep into your own baggage a little bit and help navigate that and hopefully get past some of that to allow you to be the better version of yourself. He added, the 4 core principles is read to think, write to develop, listen to what is unsaid, which speaks to what we're talking about today, and then speak to let go, which is the byproduct of all of it. That is kind of the release, if you will. And so both Andrew and myself have been doing that now. This could very well be our 31st episode. I believe it could be our 31st episode. It might actually even be more than that, because I believe we did 22 the prior year, and I believe we've done 11. So that clearly throws us over 31 episodes. We've done a pretty good job, and we'll continue to do
by the way, we just got Annie Goich just joined us and said Happy Palm Sunday.
Happy Palm Sunday, Annie. That's right. Today is Palm Sunday, guys. Yeah. Wow, it's unbelievable how quick it went. So anyway, I think this is important stuff. This is good for everybody to listen to. If this applies to you and you know who you are, let's just all do a better job of keeping ourselves in check a little bit and listen to our fellow counterpart. Seek to understand. That's the key. Seek to understand, and part of that is being a good listener.
Yeah, fantastic. And remember, labels limit. So yeah. All right. So Paul, you want to give us what we're going to do? Hopefully this week. Like I don't think this should replace our this week. Let's do one this week.
Okay, let me pick it. Hey Andrew, do me a favor. So can you get the whole PRMG shot in the background?
Oh yeah, sure.
I know that.
Oh, not me. This is let's see. How do I do this? Let's do focus on you. There we go. Ooh, look at that.
There we go. We got the
boom.
There you go. PRMG right there. PRMG Live. All right, let's see here. You want me to pick one? I love this one.
Please do.
Here it is. The more you teach, the higher your potential. I absolutely 150%. I was going to say $1.50. 150% agree with that. The bottom line is you will learn more through teaching others. It is an absolute known fact. So
what's it called again? It's the more you teach.
There it is. The more you teach, the more you teach, the higher your potential. Here's the abstract. I'll read it. True wisdom is the knowledge that all thoughts are not necessarily our own, but borrowed energy that enables action and commands reaction. Jay Doran. There you go.
Fantastic. All right. Since I'm playing around with our new toy here, I just scrolled so we have the ticker coming across the bottom. It should say it any second. Come on. Let's see. Where is it? Oh, there we go. The more. Look at that. It spelled more wrong. All right. Need to be a little bit better plan for this, but fantastic. So
it's your ADHD, buddy. It happens to all of
us. Yes, indeed. All right, fantastic. Everyone, enjoy your Palm Sunday, and we'll see you this week.
Thanks for listening, guys.